Hi, I'm Jenny. Welcome to my channel, Designs with Paper. I'm so glad you stopped by. The video I have for you today is a card making video, and I am using the layering stencils from the Gina Designs A Little Hello bundle. Wow, that's a mouthful. And the really neat thing that has come in the stamping industry, the card making industry, the last few months is this layering stencil. It's a quick, easy way to make a beautiful, beautifully colored product at the end. The stencil set that I'm using today actually had enough pieces when I got all done cutting it out to make 2 cards. So come on over, check it out, give me a thumbs up, share my channel, all those good things. Thanks so much for stopping by. So this is the Gina Designs A Little Hello Stencil Stamp and Die Bundle. I will be using just the dies and the stencils in this card project today, but the stamps coordinate perfectly as well. This is a 3 stencil set, so we will start by taping a piece of white cardstock to some scrap paper. This is Nina Classic Crest Solar White 80 pound, and it's a quarter sheet of paper, 4¼ inches by 5½ inches, and really I should have used a larger piece of paper. When it came time to use the dies to cut out these flowers, there was not quite enough space around the edges, and there were a couple of edges that got kind of cut off funny, but I made that work. So for this first layer of stamps, there are 2 flowers in the stencil set, and because I am not using this to create a background, I intend to cut these out. I'm not worried about those little flowers you can see in there. There is not a die for those, and I didn't really want to use them. I just wanted the big flowers. So I will take this yellow ink. It is an Altenew, I believe it's buttercream, and a blending brush, and blend that ink through the stencil. When you are using a blender brush and using a stencil, you need to make sure that you go both clockwise and counterclockwise. If you just blend the ink in one direction, you might end up with bare spots when you take your stencil off, and it doesn't look as nice. When the thing I love about these stencils and these blending brushes is that when you're done, because you're moving the brush around, there's lots of variation in the color. So it looks like you spent some time really thinking about how to add that detail, but really this is a fast process. So this is real time. This is a real time video. And I edited out some of the fussy stuff, but it's only like a 15-minute video in real life, in real time. So these layering stencils are a really quick way to make a really beautiful card or art project in just a few minutes. So now as I am moving on to this second stencil, there's a couple of things I want to point out. Each of the 4 corners of all 3 stencils have these little circle cutouts. And by putting ink through those circles, I was able to line the stencils up perfectly for the next layer. So the first thing I'm going to blend out here is this detail layer to the flowers. And I am using Altenew's Caramel Toffee ink and a different blending brush. So these blending brushes I only use for my dye inks, and I don't wash them. If I'm going to use a lighter orange than maybe I used last time, I rub it off on a microfiber cloth, but I don't wash them off. I just leave them. I have one brush for every color in the rainbow, and I just leave them. This second stencil has the first layer of the leaves, and one thing I didn't do when I started this was to remove the stencil and wipe it off, wipe that extra orange ink off before I started blending the green ink in there. And I started, and I didn't hate it. Like the orange and green should not really mix together well. They kind of make a muddy color usually. However, it kind of gave those leaves a nice undertone. And I liked how it was looking, so I just kept going. But really probably you should, on a stencil that has images where you're changing the color, you should pick up the stencil and wipe it off. I have found these stencils super easy to clean. I just wiped them off with a dry microfiber cloth. No water, no nothing. I just wiped the front, wiped the back. Good to go. It was super, super easy. Another thing you might notice about this stencil is that line of black ink along the bottom left-hand side. On the bottom left-hand side of these Gina K stencils is the product name, Gina K Designs, and then the stencil name, and this happens to be Bold Flowers. It also has a 1 or 2 or a 3 on the bottom. Now that information is etched into this translucent stencil material, and it's not always the easiest to see. But it's really nice that they have it there because you can tell then which is the front, which is the back, and which stencil you're working on. For this group, I don't know that the stencil order would have mattered much, but sometimes it really does matter. Anyway, back to the black ink. I just took my Sharpie marker and took a swipe across it so that I could see it better. That's just for me and my getting old lady eyes. Anyways, so we have finished up the second stencil, and you can see there are beautiful flowers and the leaves, and now we are going to go ahead with the third stencil. And again, I am using those little circles in the top to line up my stencil. This is the third color on the flower, so it's going to be the center part, and the second color on the leaves. So for these flowers, I wanted to use a brown for the centers, and I believe it was Altenews Espresso ink. And as you can see, it's dark, right? It's probably not a color you really want to mix into your grain for your leaves. So, don't do what I'm doing here. Be smart. Remove your stencil, wipe it off, and then put it back. They're so easy to line up. It's not hard to do. But I just kept going through it. I figured I already had the orange in it. A little bit of brown's not going to hurt. And this is just the detail. So the opening for the leaf part isn't that huge anyway. It's just the detail on the stem and on the leaves. I have a couple of different a couple of different layering stencil sets that I have purchased in the last couple months that I am playing around with, and you can see I shifted my paper a little bit. Guess what? It's okay. I'm just trying to get it lined back up. The tape didn't stick this time around, so I'm just fidgeting, getting it all lined up. Anyway, I do have a couple of other layering stencil sets that I have ordered in the last couple of months that I am working on and playing around with. And I have found that they all really work really well. I have this one from Gina K Designs. I have a couple from Pink Fresh Studios, and they're just so easy. Don't get me wrong, I love my Copic markers. I love my Prismacolor pencils, but look how pretty that turned out. It took me a fraction of the time it would to color the flowers in. I didn't have to clean stamps, which aren't hard to clean, but harder than stencils. And they're so pretty. So here I am just taking the dies and I am lining up the leaves and lining up the flowers and lining up the stems, and I will pass those through my die cut machine, which is over to my left hand side. The cool thing about this die set is, if you will notice, that vine has one that kind of twirls to the left and one that kind of twirls to the right, and there is a die for each of those, so it's really neat. So here where I was talking about the beginning, I should have used a bigger piece of paper. That die just doesn't quite fit without lopping off the top of that flower. But because I had more pieces than I needed for the cards, it was really easy to kind of just have that crumpled edge hanging off the edge of the card and trim it down. And I did have enough pieces that I was able to make more than one card. So this fidgety part right here is like 4 times. And I just left that in so that you could see that this really is not a long process. It's a couple of minutes to line up the dies, a couple of minutes to run it through your machine. If you are cutting them all out, it does take a couple of minutes. It probably took about the same amount of time to cut them all out as it did to ink blend them. It really was that fast. Oh my goodness, I can think my boys finally settled down. It got really quiet. So should I be nervous or should I be excited? We are entering our second week of summer vacation here. We get out of school before Memorial Day and they are a little burned out. They're having a hard time settling down still. So it's nice that it finally got quiet. A little bit scary, but nice. Okay, so there I just showed you all of my little bits and pieces. And I have this piece of paper, and it is a light pink with a gold foiled polka dot. And I am just going to arrange these flowers how I want them on the card. And I have a trick that all crafters, all card makers and crafters should really use. It's not my trick. It's one I totally copied from every other card maker on YouTube. Glad press and seal. Okay. So when you get your die cuts or your little fidgety pieces, put where you want them, glad press and seal. You put a piece of that press and seal right down over the top of it. It picks up all of those little fidgety pieces and you can get them right back in place without forgetting where you wanted them. I am so bad that even if I lay it down and take a picture of it with my cell phone, I still never get it back the way I wanted it. I don't even know. I have no words. I just never quite get it back together right. So here is my press and seal. Press and seal. There we go. And I'm just going to push it down and flip it over and carefully peel that pattern paper back up and add glue to the back of these flowers. So here is my nemesis, my liquid glue. I thought about using foam tape, but decided I was just going to go with the Tombow Mono. I really do like the Tombow Mono. I just have issues with liquid adhesive. I get it all over my desk, all over my fingers, all over my projects. It's just a mess for me. It's like I'm back in kindergarten playing with the paste jar. I don't know. All right, so now that we have our flowers glued down, we can just peel that press and seal right off. And you can see that top flower is a little bit, looks like somebody took a bite out of it because it was too close to the edge. And I am just going to trim these die cuts off. This piece of paper is 4 by 5¼ inches, so just smaller than an A2 card size. And now that I have them all trimmed off, I am going to take some of those trimmed off pieces and add them back to this bottom corner. And I felt like it needed just a little bit more volume. You know, just, I know that, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Visually appealing. There we go. That odd numbers are generally more visually appealing, but I felt like it needed just a little bit more down in that corner. And then I thought, well, if one more was good, maybe another more. Nope, just stop with the one more. So I will be using these hello dies, the word die and the shadow die. I will cut the word die out of this dark brown cardstock. And before I do that, I'm going to take a piece of this double-sided sticky. I think it is, gosh, I don't remember what brand it is because it's not in its package anymore. Anyway, it's double-sided and you lay the cardstock down on this side and I'm just going to trim off that extra because it's the last piece of a last piece. And then you can die cut through that and you'll have this beautifully die cut word that's already got adhesive on it. You don't have to worry about the fidgeting. And then I cut the shadow out of a piece of mirror gold cardstock. It actually is a poster board. I used poster to make a project for, anyway, a different project. And I had this piece of gold mirror poster board left over. It's kind of a thin weight poster board. And it was sitting on my desk and it was gold, so I used it. And ta-da, look how pretty that is. So here we go with my Tombow Mono, trying to make little tiny dots, get my finger in the way, wipe all the glue off. You won't believe at the end of a crafting session how many fingerprints and glue I have on my pants because I wipe my hands on my pants. It's just crazy. Okay, so here is my card base. It is that same dark brown. I believe it is Stampin' Up! Early Espresso, but I could be wrong. I don't label my cardstock. I just like the pretty colors. I have cut this piece of paper at 4¼ by 11 inches and scored it at 4½. And I will mount this panel to the card base with my ATG gun. And I tend to put it sideways so that I can see at least 3 of the edges at one time. That way it's visually centered. I'm not super interested in measuring. I just like how it looks visually. I have a piece of copy paper that is 4 inches by 5 1/4 for the inside so that you can write your cute message on it. And here is the other card that I made from the scraps. Thanks so much for stopping by. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think. And hey, subscribe to my channel and share my channel. I would really love to have new friends. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great day.